Alright, we're back with match number 1. Sand. If I was ever going to keep a 4-land hand, this is kind of what it would have to look like. 2 creatures, a spell, a couple cantrips. We'll try it, although in general, if you're in an event that matters, I would say mulligan the sand. This turn's golden. Oop, we're up against living end. Okay. Mm-hmm. We have a subtlety. Is that what they're tanking on? Put out the generous ent. Mm-hmm. Okay. Goblin Guide. 3/3. This represents 8/8, 14 power. So if we don't block, they do 6, 6, 6. They have an violent outburst. We die exactly anyway, so it's not even worth blocking here. Yeah, even if we had blocked, they'd do 7, 7, 7. We could only block 2. Everything else trample, so this at least gave us the out of so bolt plus bolt. Yeah, we would have won next turn too. Alright, the Snaring Bridge is at least interesting. Chalice is fine. Bloodmoon effects on the draw might be fine. Relics are fine. Stone of a Rock. Creature an opponent controls would die. Exile instead. So the only 2 creatures this potentially hits is Subtlety and Grief. But also has 2 mana Exile Graveyard, so we probably have to bring that in. The Searing Blazes are complete trash. So we could like bring in these against Leyline, but that seems a little risky because some of these decks don't even have that many copies of Leyline anymore. I think we'll just go down 4 copies of Rift Bolt. Problem is, almost all of our stuff our opponent gets around by Force of Vigor or copies of this hand just isn't good enough. This hand is okay, not superbly great. Keep, put back, skewer the critics. To their opponent. Obviously, this plays into Force of Vigor pretty badly, but okay, opponent concedes. Which is kind of ironic because I don't think we were in a good position that game, despite the our opponent skipping their first draw step. Not skipping their first draw steps, forgetting to draw their first land or play their first land. Yeah, I still think the rest of these cards, other than potentially Wear Tear, even makes sense, so we'll just kind of roll with what we have here. I don't really like Blood Moon and Magus of the Moon, but it is like a potential way to slow them down. They're probably not going to play around Blood Moon from a burn opponent, so this hand is, once again, kind of 4-lander, but we have 2 cards that are relatively good in the matchup, so... or at least theoretically good. I mean, an opponent obviously can have Grief or Force of Negation, Force of Vigor, Foundation Breaker. Unfortunately, as the burn player, you can't really mulligan to specific hate cards, so yeah, opponent's got Grief. Shocker of shockers there. Question is, which one will they take? Staring Bridge is the one they can't beat. Okay. Drawing a 5th land is less than ideal, but that's what we got to roll with here, so. Less than ideal, obviously. They really should main phase this in case we draw Boros Charm, but I guess they're just going to use it for cascading into stuff. Yep. Funny part is they literally get nothing. I don't know why they're going GG, but whatever. Kind of crap that we drew that many lands, but is what it is. It's possible they had force, that's why they might have said GG, but there is actually some combination of cards that beat them there, so I don't ever like saying GG in situations like that, because your opponent could have like Exquisite Firecraft plus creature and suddenly you have egg on your face, so. Alright, up against match number 2. Play, which is nice. Opponent's got a companion of some kind, but they choose not to reveal it. Definitely keeping this hand. Opponent with a Sanctum Weaver. Oh, wonderful. Enchantress. We're going to 16 here. Okay. So 6 plus 4. Their opponent can't cast any spells, or they're dead. I guess theoretically they could have Leyline Sanctity, but then they're still dead to the board, so. Alright, Enchantress. Blood Moon effects, probably not that great. Wear Tears. Searing Blaze is okay, but against their creatures, but pretty bad in the face of Leyline Sanctity. Grim isn't really the best in this matchup, but it is a little bit better than some of the other nonsense. Don't think Blood Moons are particularly good. As our opponent's already going to be aggressively fetching basics against Burn anyway, but it might get them a little bit. Rest of our deck just doesn't make much sense. Probably going to shave one card, so probably shave a Rift Bolt and call it a day. Okay, so did confirm they did have a... This hand's just a little too risky. Try this hand on the draw, although I'm not thrilled about it. It has a ley line, shocker of shockers. Why move to your second main phase? Like, seriously, that just aggravates me. So instead of playing Eidolon, I'm actually going to go ahead and play Vortex here, since we saw them have a copy of Beseju. Oh, yeah, Stithis, yeah. So that one's just gonna die, but I say they have to Beseju it because of Alright, moving on. Alright, guess that I'd like to play first. Hazumori. Alright, we'll keep it. Mostly on the back of Monkey just being an absolutely stupid card. Let me guess, on thin ice. Of course you do. Alright, that was fun. Alright, match 3. It's not been the toughest of leagues so far. Alright, pretty good opener. 1 drop into burn spells is usually pretty reasonable in a lot of matchups. So yes, we are tweaking a lot of cards, playing a lot of unique things this league, and it is somewhat of a joke after the heck already. So we up against mono black discard. Oh, what a league. Goodbye, Boros Charm. If we literally go from a league of Living End into Enchantress into the rack, yeah, I don't know what to say. Those are 2 of Burn's worst matchups and a matchup that is close, but I would say is in Living End's favor. So does in fact look like we are up against the rack. So I will not be attacking here because that would just be giving our opponent a free look at a land. So if they wish to use their mana, so be it. If they don't, so be it. With Shoulder Zeke in their hand, I know this Goblin guy isn't living, so. Opponent looks like they're trying to pass the second main phase, try to cast Mind Rake before I can react. Alright, well, we seem to continue our trend this league of drawing way too many lands, so. I guess the only blessing this league, or blessing this game, is the fact that if our opponent goes to discard spells, they get nothing, so. That makes a token, go gets a copy of the rack. Pithing Needle, seriously? Okay, sure. Eidolon's not exactly the best choice here, but problem is our opponent's got us on a 2-turn clock here. If they fire up Mishra's Factory, looks like they're just going to go in there as a Saga and grind this out that way. I think our opponent's playing way too cautious. Like, I understand Urza Saga is a reasonable plan against us, but you're giving me too many draw steps. So maybe they already had their copy of the rock in hand. Maybe that's why they didn't... Alright, so... Leyline Sanctity seems pretty good. I guess some Blood Moons seem alright. Sanctifying back, not the greatest, but it's fine. This and the Wear Tear seem fine. Searing Blaze has a chance to get very easily stranded in our hands, so I don't particularly like it. Lightning Helix, we're not generally in a racing situation, like it can help, but not really where I want to be. And then try it like that. Alright, yes. Sand is fine. 1 drop into Eidolon. Or 1 drop into double bolt effects. Or Wear Tear if they even have Leyline. Or if they go Urza Saga, we can wear tear it. Urza Saga. Okay. Turn 1, discard spell. What do you take? Have to presume it's between these two if they Inquisition or Thoughtseize us. They may just hold up like Fatal Push for this, so kind of the options my opponent has. Seriously? Okay. As if this deck didn't have enough bullshit angles to attack. Oh, okay, they're just literally griefing us. Sure. I guess they could still have, like, Persist or something. But I feel like you have to take Wear Tear if you're on the Urza Saga plan. It's got to be the only thing making it remotely difficult for them is that. And they might have a Fatal Push here, so still think we have to attack because we don't 100, well, we drew in the second one, but we definitely have to attack, but we don't like 100% know for sure that they have Fatal Push here, so we'll avoid Walker. Feels like they have a Fatal Push the way they sequence things, yeah. Let this go. I care about the Voidwalker, but at the same time, it doesn't currently inhibit my game plan, so I'm just going to go ahead and just going to cast Boros Charm here. We know they're likely to Inquisition us. For them, I don't know if they take this or one of the burn spells. Okay. Take one down to I think we do this to shut off their other land. So the Silent Clearing no longer taps for mana. They will be able to activate Urza Saga this turn. But unless they have something like Shadow Spear, I think they're just dead this game. They would literally need to go like Shadow Spear. Okay, what would you even cast here? Boulder Skewer on the that's fine. Still don't think we want ensnaring bridges. Chalices, no. We're gonna Lavamancer on the draw. That's are fine. Could even bring in Stone because of their stupid small grief package. But I think we just go ahead and do this. Would love to see the one of Leyline in our opening hand. I mean, I'm not mulliganing this hand. It's pretty good in general, so. Does deal us a lot of damage. Expedition map. Okay. Okay, they're gonna have a grief, which is annoying. One of their cards in hand is grief. Maybe they'll flinch and deal with this goblin guy this turn. So I did that because, like, the one card that is a problem for us is Urza's Saga. The rest of their deck, it's annoying, but their clock is generally pretty slow. The problem with this matchup is usually if they go, like, discard spell and a discard spell into, you know, some other empty the hand effect into... like, if they grief us here, it's annoying, but it's still a lot less worse than, say, yeah, Eidolon did its thing, so. Oh, okay, sure. So they get to cast a grief, take one of our burn spells, go to 9. And then, presume they have to take Skewer the Critics here. Just because they want to keep their grief around. This is basically a removal spell for grief, so I'm fine with that. In response to the Urza Saga trigger, I think we got to pop the... Do we got to pop it? Maybe. Not sure. They could get Pithing Needle and shut down Sunbaked Canyon, but I don't think I'm going to play around that. I still think the most annoying card here is the Rack, so... Like, if they get a Pithing Needle, whatever. It's one less draw. Yes, it's certainly a risk, but I'm more worried about things like... Which, yeah, that's their go-to. I still don't agree with that, but, you know, they can do whatever they want. Okay, just about any burn spell on our deck is lethal here. Fortunately, we boarded a lot of utility stuff that isn't burn spells, so... That not cantripping may cost us. We'll see. I think we have one more draw step. Okay, so if we didn't keep land in hand, we'd be dead here. Okay. All right. Yep, punished for not activating Sunbaked Canyon. So, small plays can hurt. All right, back from match 4. I guess I'd like to play first. Scan 4-lander, but I think with 2 creatures, it's riskable. I think Senior Noggles, I've seen them on Live Again, maybe? Oop. Fetch Sock, Inquisition. There goes Swift Spear. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Quasi 2-for-1, but at least Blaze still does damage in the process of killing Tarmogoyf there. This is the card that I was least wanting them to have here. At least they hit a land. Mm-hmm. Well, glad I didn't fetch in the opposite order. Okay, so they're John Saga. Tank, tank, tank. Cast the monkey I was going to cast anyway. Tank, tank, tank. Seemed like they were considering the ramifications of if I drew a creature. Mm-hmm. Alright, so I guess some Blood Moon. Stern Birches might be okay here. Relics might be okay. These ones are kind of middling. Sanctifier, not really. These ones, not really. Line could be okay. Rolling Vortex is pretty trash. Eidolon is probably out in this matchup. It's a lot of 3 drops. Okay, yeah, this hand has some potential, so they say. Downside of Magus, obviously, is they can still cast things like Monkey and such. Mm-hmm. 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 This does mean I need to draw what? Ensnaring Bridge to survive? Alright. So this league has not been the kindest to us so far in these game threes, but I did punt, or at least took the wrong line against 8 rack. So Living End. Like, we did keep a couple four-landers, but I think game 1, it more came down to their speed, and then game 3, the fact that they had the answer to Ensnaring Bridge. Against Enchantress, I mean, it was nice to steal game 1, but I just think that matchup is particularly horrendous. Like, you'd need to run something like a Green Splash and Back to Nature to have a prayer in that matchup. So, curious what my opponent goes here. They could just have a removal spell. Haywire Might. Yeah, that's fine. Pass. I would cast Engineer Explosives, but I don't know to what end. Like, maybe an answer to Tarmogoyf, but they would need to draw their basic land, and yeah, so. Alright, on to match 5. Back from match 5. Guess I'd like to be able to play. Pretty reasonable hand. 1 drop into some burn spells. Really can't ask for much more out of the burn deck, so. Lead on Basic Mountain to avoid taking damage, plus we might want the fetch land for triggering Searing Blaze. Basic Island, go. Okay, so we're up against Rhino O'Clock. Nope, Living End again. Okay. pitch something for free. Interesting that they would choose to pitch Force of Negation of all cards. Can't tell me you don't have a cycler you want to pitch for free, quite literally. Mm-hmm. It gets nothing. Still can't believe that they pitched a Force of Negation. That just kind of boggles my mind. Gonna cast this main phase because they could have Force of Negation. So, or not Force of Negation. Okay, somehow our opponent goofed enough that we were able to win game number 1. Snaring Bridges seem fine. All of our anti-graveyard stuff seems fine. Blood Moon stuff's middling, but we'll see. Definitely want these out. Could potentially bring in these, but Bone Crusher Giant is okay. A couple Rift Bolts and oh, that was dumb. Yeah, I forgot my most important sideboard card. Quite literally. 13 points burn. Obviously, if they have Leyline Sanctity, we're in a world of trouble, but as low as they're mulliganing, it is a possibility that they have it. Okay. Or my opponent just concedes. We also take those here. Alright, so quick wrap with this version of Burns. So the thought process behind this version that we were working on is last week's Burn video, we played this kind of off-the-wall Burn deck that had like a bunch of 1-0s, like one Ragavan, one Grim Lavamancer, one Eidolon, one Bone Crusher Giant, and it had a bunch of 1-0s in the sideboard, along with some cards that you definitely want to entertain in the current meta. So we kind of kept that theme up and then made some adjustments. First adjustment I made was to cut the Grim Lavamancer in the main deck for a copy of Zurgo. Now, Zurgo is not the best of creatures. It's basically a poor man's Ragavan, except it can't block really in any meaningful way and doesn't get pinged down by a random Bowmaster tree or a run-in 6. So there is some consideration for both these cards. I'm not terribly attached to either one, but I do think they're both fine. One of Eidolon, I think one of is randomly a good number for Eidolon. Like, you really don't want to draw multiples of it. You know, it's just kind of good in certain situations, and it's a card you can easily board out. Bone Crusher Giant really hasn't come up much. I mean, I think the only time we saw it this league was the one game against Enchantress. And the Stomp can be relevant in situations like that. If they were to have the Solitary Confinement, we could potentially push through damage, but they just had random too much life gain and other stuff going on. Plus, all their enchantments have Shroud, so... the rest of the deck, nothing too fancy. I think 2 Vortex might be the current go-to number in a lot of main decks, and I'm fine with that. As far as the 1-0s in the sideboard that we were messing with, Relics are fine. They're good against living, or reasonable against Living End. They're not good because Leyline Sanctity is a card. They are a little slow in that matchup, but they're fine. Stone of a Wreck is... With Scam not completely out of the format, this card is something you can play. But I do wonder if you're going to go with another third piece of Graveyard Hate, if a second Sanctifier in Vec or one of Rest in Pieces. This is one of the cards that's probably on the chopping block, but I wanted to give it one more shot. Grim, like, some people expected creature decks to come back in much larger quantities. And in those metas, Grim is a perfectly fine Magic card. The problem is we're still in a Bowmaster, Run-in 6, Lava Dart format. Anything X1 that isn't named Ragavan is almost unplayable, even with a Loss of Fury. So I think Grim is also going to be on the chopping block, not a card I would consider. One of Firewalker I think is fine. The burn matchup, the mirror can be a little bit tricky if you don't have like a Haymaker. This, along with Lightning Helixes, kind of breaks serve in that regard. One of Sanctifier, I'm once again fine with that. It could be a second core Firewalker, it could be Rest in Peace. But, as long as Rakdos Scam is part of the meta, the Orzhov lists are still running around some. I'm fine with dedicating one slot. Chalice of the Void, we played against 2 Cascade decks. I mean, I don't really need to know that I need to say much else. The only thing I would say is another card that consideration here would be Drannith Magistrate, just having, once again, more Cascade hate. Leyline Sanctity, this one's a weird one. So, as a 1-of, you're not going to see it very often. You want it in your opening hand if you're going to see it. So, in that regard, it's tricky because, we brought it in 2 different matchups, the Jund matchup and the Mono Black 8 rack, or Urza rack, whatever you want to call it, matchup. It serves some purpose there, serves some purpose against Jund. It's a cute card in the Burn Mirror, but I think this one might be too cute, but I'll probably run it back one more time. And then I'm going to get to these four. So, Ensnaring Bridge is a card that I think at times is very cute, but not good for burn. There's certain matchups you want it in, but almost every matchup has an answer to it in matchups you want. Now, decks you could want this against: Hammer Time, Hardened Scales to a certain degree, Death Shadow variants, Jund decks, Urza Saga decks, Amulet. Now, they all have workarounds. They all have ways to either destroy it or kill you otherwise. And also Living End, Rhinos. There's a lot of matchups. This is a tricky card for them to deal with, especially when you're bringing in, a Chalice and, say, a Drannith Magistrate in addition to your Ensnaring Bridges, plus your Rolling Vortexes. Your number of bullets in those matchups kind of goes up, and your opponent has to play around them in slightly different ways. So each time I've played Ensnaring Bridge, it's almost never disappointed. And there's been a few times where it's one of the few cards that can buy us the turns we need to draw enough burn spells to finish the game off. Now, Magus and Blood Moon. So, burn is not a Blood Moon deck. We generally want access to both of our colors. We play some double white spells in our sideboard. However, two of the matchups that, as a burn player, absolutely have given me fits are Urza Saga decks and Amulet. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying these are both experimental slots. Tried out by, I forget, whoever the player was that we were copying their list last week. And the more I play it, the happier I am to have this random, Hoju card. Now, a lot of decks, I already kind of commented, like Living End and Enchantress, and some of these other decks, they're 2 or 3 color mana bases that Blood Moon might get a little bit. A little too cute in those matchups. But, Jund and Tron and Amulet and some of these other weird ones, I'm not opposed to a Blood Moon or 2 effect style on my sideboard. And so we continue to try it, and I continue to bring it in, and there are certain situations where it's almost a knockout card. Against Jund that one game. Now, certainly as your Temur, or is it Murktides and Rakdos scam decks increase in the format, Blood Moon's not the card you want to have access to, but I think it might help some of the bad matchups enough to be worth slots. So, these ones I'm going to continue. I think if I want Blood Moons to be kind of a part of Burn's arsenal, that we may have to go back up to the second Ragavan over the Zergo. Or maybe that over the Bone Crusher Giant or something. Simply because, especially on the draw, you want to maximize your abilities to go turn 1 Ragavan, turn 2 Blood Moon. So, lots of moving pieces with this weird stuff we're working with, but I think instead of going to the automatic 2 Path to Exile, 2 this, 2 that, 3 this, 3 that, I think this one of testing random cards really kind of stretches what Burn has options to. And while we don't have cantrips like Preordain and Expressive Iteration to find these cards, I think just these random 1-ofs or 2-ofs that can just completely devastate the opponent might be a missing angle from Burn's attack. So even though the league result was disappointing, I did like testing out some cards today. Like I said, I was fine with Ragavan. I was fine with Zergo. Eidolon had its moments to shine. I kept some really unorthodox hands with 4 lands. That is to say, probably should have mulliganed them. But I still think a hand with 2 1-drop creatures, 2 cantrip lands, and another burn spell was perfectly fine. Because honestly, I don't think we lost to run out of cards against Living End. We just lost to turn 3 Living End. So, anywho, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe if you like burn leagues, and see you for our next video.